Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is heartening to notice that a number of Zimbabweans have since come to realize that when the nation came out on the 17th of November 2017 to support the military coup, it was a big mistake, a serious national mistake. What made it such a serious mistake is that the people should have focused their attention on getting rid of the ZANU-PF dictatorship. That should have been their number one priority. In fact, you can date it back to the late 1990s when the people realized that ZANU-PF was rigging the elections, and as long as the party is able to rig the elections, they will never have any meaningful change in the country. So the only logical thing to do was for them to call for democratic change, and in this particular case, elect opposition whose number one task would be to implement the democratic reforms to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections. That should have been the number one focus and never deviate from that. The fact that it has taken so long to end the ZANU-PF dictatorship is another story. In 2017, the coup, the military coup, was a factional in-house fighting in ZANU-PF. It had nothing to do with the ordinary people. People should have realized that siding with one of the two factions was not going to deliver anything as far as the people were concerned, for the simple reason that the two factions were not fighting to end the dictatorship. They were only fighting for who was to be in power. In other words, supporting the military coup on the 17th of November was a diversion. It didn't help the cause the people were fighting for, i.e. to end the dictatorship. All we succeeded in doing is removing one dictator and putting another. How anyone could mistake that for removing the dictatorship itself was the big mistake. So yes, it was a serious mistake. But when you start getting the likes of Nelson Chamisa and his opposition friends taking up that call and say, we made a serious national mistake, one has got to ask the seriousness and the authenticity of people like Chamisa then. Because they knew what they were doing. This was not a mistake at all. They are the ones who encouraged people to come out in support of the coup because they believed that at the end of the day, the coup leaders would form a new GNU, and that's all they care about. They wanted a new GNU so that they could carry on from what they had during the 2008 to 2013 GNU. If we're going to say it was a mistake, are we also going to say that the MDC leaders' failure to implement even one token reform during the 2008 to 2013 GNU was a mistake? Because they failed. That is the reality. They had 5 years to implement reforms. They failed to implement even one token reform. Not only that, when they realized they had failed to implement any meaningful reforms in 2013, they were warned by SADC, do not go into those elections without implementing at least the electoral reforms. They ignored that. Was that a mistake again? Ever since the GNU debacle, the MDC leaders have known that participating in these flawed elections would only give ZANU-PF legitimacy. And they admit it. Here is a quotation I've often used from David Coulthard's book, in which he admitted that the election process in 2013 was so flawed, so illegal, the only logical step was to withdraw. But he goes on to explain why he and his counterparts in MDC, he was in MDC Ngube, and his counterparts in MDC T, Changirai, did not withdraw. They did not trust the other side to do the same. And so they each participated because they wanted the few gravy train seats that they knew ZANU-PF was giving away to entice the opposition to participate. Was that a mistake? Of course not. These are all calculated, deliberate, treasonous acts of betrayal. Even when they knew that participating will give ZANU-PF legitimacy, they still went on to coerce people to participate by telling them lies. In 2023, Nelson Chamisa told the people that CCC was going to win big because he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. He knew that was a lie.
Makorokoto Zimbabwe nokuti hakuna munhu anomira kana denga raronga plan. Denga raronga plan, denga harifo iri. Plan yaMwari haifo iri. Ini ndatanga kugadzira cabinet. There is no way we are not going to form a new cabinet. There is no way we are not going to have a celebration. There is no way we are not going to have an inauguration. Let's start preparing for our inauguration. Let's start preparing for our celebration.
That was the truth. He was lying. He knew he had not plugged any vote rigging loopholes. He knew that the voters' roll was in shambles, as Tim Pachedu had revealed. He still went ahead and he conned people to participate out of greed. One of the interesting stories that have emerged was from some of his own fellow leaders, the likes of Chilton Wende. He has revealed that C did not deploy election agencies, even though they had the money to do so. Why? Because they knew ZANU-PF was rigging those elections. And so they pocketed some of the money. And when they here admitting that the money the polling agent, meant for the polling agent was pocketed, and some of it was used to buy cars. He is only telling something that we already knew, that C MDC leaders have been participating in these flawed elections out of greed. That is the reality that some people have refused to accept. And it's most unfortunate that they have refused to accept it, because it doesn't change the reality. And this is the tragedy in this case. I'm disappointed that the likes of Nelson Chamisa now wants to pretend that they made are serious mistakes, when these are actually deliberate and calculated treasonous acts, betraying the people. For somebody like Chamisa, who is in the habit of quoting the Bible, he of all people should know that there are some mistakes, as Samuel, the prophet Samuel would put it, that cannot be undone. The tragedy with Zimbabwe is some of our leaders have made so many of these treasonous acts. It really is unforgivable to pretend these are just mistakes. Here is the prophet Samuel reminding us of that very fact. This is from the movie, The House of David.
I don't understand what I saw.
In time, you will. Tell me, how did you find me?
I thought there was only one mountain more holy than none.
Indeed.
Sinai. Mountain of fire.
I derive great strength here, great wisdom. Still, I need no vision to understand why you come.
Remember the days past, Samuel? Nothing in my father's sight. The boy.
These memories flood me each and every day. They break my heart.
Why does this curse remain?
Jonathan, the only curse is your father's unwillingness to release what is no longer his. Tell me, what is the first commandment that Moses gave here on this very mountain?
You shall have no other gods before me.
And yet, your father has become a god unto himself, and he is tormented because of that.
You can bring him back.
I have no such problem.
You do. You are Samuel. You led Israel. Home in fear you.
No.
As they should.
No, Jonathan. I have begged for your father, for your house. It changes nothing. There are some mistakes that cannot be undone.
then the visions I had ascending the mountain may come to pass.
There is truth in that, but I cannot say whether they will come to pass. Hey, Jonathan, none of this is your doing. There is much goodness in you.
If you believe that, then tell me. You anointed another?
¿Cómo estás? Who do you serve?
God. Above all.
Indeed I have.
As king?
A king whose reign will know no end.
That is the truth. What some of our political leaders have done and have been doing is treasonous betrayal of the people. And they pretend, or want to pretend, these are just mistakes. That is something that should be dismissed with the total contempt it deserves, because nothing could be further from the truth. When Nelson Chamisa and his MDC friends failed to implement even one token reform during the GNU, that was not a mistake. They sold out. The opposition have failed to implement even one token reform in 25 years. That is no mistake. It is because they're breathtakingly incompetent and corrupt. The tragedy with Zimbabwe is that Zimbabweans themselves have been slow to realize it. 25 years and not even one token reform to show for their time in office is a long time. Why have the people failed to come up and realize that the opposition is there selling out? The people of Zimbabwe have to wake up to the reality that they have corrupt and incompetent leaders. It is interesting, actually, that one of the cartoonists has produced the cartoon of the opposition, of the ordinary people celebrating 17th of November 2017. Happy National Zungu Day. And they are gloriously happy. The truth of the matter is, they should be asking themselves, what are we happy about? But it is a cartoon that is capturing the problems in Zimbabwe. We should be hanging our heads in shame and keen as mustard to get out of this hell that we've found ourselves in. And yet here we are, happily celebrating our stupidity, our own stupidity. The roads are full of potholes. The sewage flowing everywhere. The country is sinking. And yet, we seem to be oblivious of all that and celebrate our own stupidity, our own serious national mistake. I ask again, what is there to celebrate? Have a good day.